Oh, you have no idea how good it is to see you here tonight. We haven't done this in 3 years, and quite honestly, we weren't sure we were ever going to do it again. And here we are. So it's a little emotional, and it's just such a special place to be. And this is a remarkable group of people, and you're going to see that in a little bit. Before we start, I want to tell you a couple of just bookkeeping kinds of things. If you could make sure your cell phones are turned off, that would be super helpful. Show is quite short, so whatever calls you miss, they won't be waiting too long for you. Also, we leave tomorrow morning on tour. Yeah. And we're excited about that, and we're going to be here late tonight and early tomorrow morning, and it's going to be awesome. You can follow along with us. Our tour is going to be documented on our website, starfiresingers.com, and every show is going to be streamed on starfiresingers.com. Well, you go to starfiresingers.com and then click a link. So if you want to see what we look like in Reading or Roseburg or Beaverton or Vancouver or Napa, you can check in and see our shows there. Following the show, what we're asking is that rather than grouping in here and, doing whatever particle spreading we do when we hug each other and say hi, we're going to go out the doors that way. There's a wonderful patio area, and we'll greet each other there and just say hi to each other. This is a show that generated with these people up here. This is a show about stories, a show about our stories, the stories that are the things that make up our lives. And it's a show about how the stories of our lives weave together with stories of others. And it's a show about how they take unexpected twists and turns. And if you just allow me a minute, I'm just kind of struck by the way the arc of our stories go in such unexpected directions. And when I was 16 years old, I went to a retreat at Monte Toyon, which is our camp over here in Aptos. And, I was just like these guys. I was a teenager with a lot of doubts and a lot of excitement. And the person leading music and worship was a guy named Jim Strathy. And he and his wife Jeannie are just, they're icons. And okay, I know you don't want me to say that, so I'm not going to say that anymore. But they're here tonight. And the thing... And I can't see you, but I do know you're here. The thing about that is I had no idea that the story that started there at that camp, when I was just a goofy, nerdy 16-year-old who my friends pushed me up forward when Jim asked if anybody played the piano, I had no idea where that would lead me. But I wouldn't be here in the ministry, and I wouldn't be doing what I'd be doing, and there wouldn't be this show if that hadn't happened. Jim showed me what it means to make music that matters, and to make music that connects with more than just the surface level. And then I met Jeannie. I think she was busy with a baby when I met Jim. And that helped me realize what Carol and I have realized, is that a partnership is so much stronger than just doing it by yourself. And we have been inspired by the two of you. So I'm grateful. That's where that story arc went. About 38 years ago, maybe 39 years ago, our pastor, John Dodson, called Carol and me into his office. And he said, "You guys, I'm in a jam. I need you to take over Starfire," because the director had just quit real abruptly. And just do it for a month, and then we'll reevaluate. John, I'm still waiting for that meeting. And John and his wife Vicki are here tonight, and that means so much to me. Then one of our first tours, well, it was like maybe our third or fourth tour, We stopped at a little church in Greenville, California, a beautiful, wonderful place, and sadly a church that burned down in the wildfires. And it was the most it's a little church, and they had a huge sign, and they had lemonade and cookies, and they were the most radically hospitable people that we've ever encountered on our tour. And the pastor there, it turned out he had only been the pastor there for 3 weeks. His name's Dave Samuelson. And he has just been appointed our senior pastor, and he and his wife Sonia are here tonight. So I think the point of it is we don't know where our stories are going to go. I saw Virginia Roberts, who's the director of the Rejoice Gospel Ensemble, who I toured Austria and Germany with, and she came to see the show tonight with Dee, and I didn't know where that story would go. The stories that we weave together, the story of Starfire is, I can't even begin to describe it. We can pick the little places. We can pick when we were having lunch at a restaurant in Moscow and a riot broke out, or we could talk about when Starfire sang at Stormont, the parliament for the Northern Ireland, and Catholics and Protestants were there worshiping together. We can talk about when all the power went out and this group just kept on singing. There's little stories, but the whole arc of the story is that these people and all the people who came before them, a lot of whom are chaperoning on this trip or running tech for this trip, believed in something bigger than just themselves. And Pastor Dave said it on Sunday that the magic of Starfire, a lot of people think it's a lot of different things, but it is about the reign of God. It is about bringing God's presence into our lives and into their lives and into your lives and into the life of the church. The stories we tell tonight, every story you hear tonight is one of their stories. When we finally realized we were going to be able to do a tour, we said, well, what we want to do is tell your story. And so we met, and we had some, they were tough times of just sharing super painful stories. And you will hear some painful things tonight, and it's things that might jar you a little bit. And then they told their stories of hope. And oh my gosh, the stories of hope are so amazing. But every story tonight, every single word in that script comes from them. And we've mixed it up a lot, and so the people telling the story aren't necessarily the people whose story it is, you know what I mean? But every story that folks are telling tonight belongs to these guys. The last thing I want to say is this group, I know you didn't come to hear me speak, I know, but I told you it'd be a short show, but I was kidding. This group, the reason we're here tonight and the reason we're going on tour tomorrow is because of them. Because they wouldn't let COVID keep them down. They connected all through that. They wouldn't let no be the final answer. They wouldn't let others tell them. They stood up and they said, we want to do this. We want to be together and we want to do this. And their tenacity and their persistence and their incredible love for each other and for what this is why we're here tonight. And I could not be prouder of this wonderful group of people. So, with all that, thank you so much for being here for our premiere performance, and welcome to Weave.
Good to see you. Sorry it took me a while to get here. I found this last time we were together. It might be yours.
I don't think this is mine.
Hi, Michael. It's so good to see you.
Michael, is this yours?
I believe that is.
Oh, you want it back?
It's great to see you,
goodness.
man.
I can't believe how long it's been. It's great to see you guys.
a space we find the strength to share the stories that we claim.
As we set our fears aside, we find abundant grace. As we weave this tapestry of story, time, and place, it is here we find a safe communion all our hearts embrace.
Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here.
Tender, fragile souls.
Each with sacred stories, each with sacred stories, each part of the whole.
Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here.
Each with sacred stories, each with sacred stories, each part of the whole.
Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here.
Each with sacred stories, each with sacred stories, each part of the whole.
I actually found something earlier that I wanted to show the both of you.
Really?
You follow me right this way. So you know our community board, right?
yeah.
And how it has leave on it. I was thinking we could do a little something more artistic, more representative of who we are.
What about the baskets where they go over and under? It's like
they
it's all coming together.
intertwine and like go.
Yeah. I
love
We
that.
could do something like that and like have it like really
just
artistically
something
Like
designed.
up on the board with drapes. Maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
All are welcome, all invited, come and join us here. In this place where God's persistent love casts out our fear. So just let it go and let God in, we all are welcome here. So just let it go and let God in, we all are welcome here. So just let it go and let God in, we all are welcome here.
It is so great to see you, everybody. We want to welcome you to the Weave Hostel. We hope that you, like us, find this a place of safety, comfort, and trust. Hostels are more than just inexpensive places to stay while you're traveling. Hostels are where people come together, people stopping for rest and respite on their journey. Wherever they're from and wherever they're going, they find a common place to land, even if for a brief amount of time, in a hostel. This is a sacred space. What it helps us realize is that even though we have all kinds of different experiences, all kinds of different futures, we do share more than we know. We share this journey through life. And the more we listen to each other, the more we realize how connected we are.
This hostel is open, welcoming, inclusive, and expansive. That means you are a part of it too. What happens here is organic and not in any way static, self-contained, or limited to just us. Our hope and our prayer is that as we share our stories, you are inspired to share yours too, and that you'll feel a deeper connection to us, to each other, and to God.
In a world and a time that is so focused on what divides us, our time here tonight is about what connects us. The stories, the struggles, the hopes, all of it. Every person we encounter, every single one, carries so many strands of so many different stories. Mostly, we'll never know how they all weave together. But we believe that the more we know, the better our chances of finding connection and understanding.
And so we pause here at the Weave Hostel to take a moment to acknowledge the struggles and the pain, but also to recognize the hope and the promise, and realize that more than anything, we're traveling through life carrying all of it: fears, anxiety, loss, hope, joy, and celebration with us. The more we share with each other, the lighter the load and the brighter the hope. Welcome.
We carry hope, we carry fears, we carry joy, we carry tears, we carry bags that we carry, it's so much more than we could ever say. The bags on our backs are all filled with the stuff that makes us who we are, our lifetime repertoire. These bags on our backs carry more than just love. It's the things that left a scar and the guidance from a star. These bags carry hope, carry loss, carry love. These bags carry help that has come from above. These bags that we carry, carry us. These bags that we carry, carry on. The times we felt so all alone, so lost and far away from home, when we weren't sure that we could take much more. And times of joy quite unsurpassed, the times we hoped would last and last. We felt our spirits, souls, and hearts just soar. The bags on our backs are all filled with the stuff that makes us who we are, our lifetime repertoire. These bags on our backs carry more than just love. It's the things that left a scar and the guidance from a star. These bags carry hope, carry loss, carry love. These bags carry help that has come from above. These bags that we carry, carry us. These bags that we carry, carry on. There's so much I don't know about the burdens that you carry. There's so much you don't know about mine. But when we stop and see the magic in the ordinary, our stories and our hearts and souls align. The bags on our backs are all filled with the stuff that makes us who we are, our lifetime repertoire. These bags on our backs carry more than just love. It's the things that left a scar and the guidance from a star. These bags carry hope, carry loss, carry love. These bags carry help that has come from above. These bags that we carry, carry us. These bags that we carry, carry on.
As we just explained to these folks, this is a special place. We are here to pause just for a moment at the Weave Hostel to listen and to share our stories.
Those packs that you carried in with you today are filled with stories and experiences and feelings. Some of them are tough. Some of them involve fear and anxiety and loss and struggle. Some of them are wonderful. They involve hope and joy and celebration. All of that is a part of what you carried in with you today.
As we share our stories, we'll see how they weave together. Of course, your stories are your stories, but when we listen to each other, we realize that we're not alone. We are all connected in love. how about you three?
Us?
Okay.
Let's go.
Yes, come, share your stories, the struggles and the fears. This is a safe place. We're all with you.
You know, I don't know if I actually have like a story to tell. I mean, I guess I have a lot of stories. We all do. But I'm not sure how my story or stories are all that interesting or all that unique.
That's okay. That's really the point. It's not about having some big, huge, heroic story to share. It's about sharing who we are with each other. It's the stuff of life. Some of our stories in our lives are pretty huge. Or should I say some of the stories in all of our lives are pretty huge. When we share our stories and our experiences and how certain times has made us feel, we connect. I guarantee you that every story and feeling we share tonight will resonate with someone. Most likely a lot of someone who hears it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for making it a safe space to share. I hope you'll all feel the same way. Well, I hold myself to a really high standard. A lot of my self-worth is wrapped up in grades and stuff, so if I don't do well at something, it really brings me down. When pandemic hit, everything I knew about school and study and the rhythms of life turned upside down, and for the first time, I actually didn't do very well on some of my tests and missed some assignments. And it just kind of cascaded. The worse I did, the more my self-worth sank, and the more my self-worth sank, the worse I did. I honestly didn't really know who I was anymore. What I learned through all that was I struggle a lot with change. Long as the rhythms and routines stayed the same, I was good. But things happen and things change, and growing up is really hard. There's a lot on the horizon I just can't predict, like college and jobs and stuff like that. I struggle with change in my life, whether it's what I'm doing or whether it's the people that I'm with. Friendships seem to be changing, and I can't control that, and it's really hard, so I overthink it. I really care about the way other people see me, so I tend to overthink things. It's that self-worth thing again. Am I doing this right? Do they like me? I don't know, I guess that's not really a story though, is it?
It is, though. It's the story of how the things going on around you are affecting you inside. And it's an important part of your story. Thank you for sharing it. How about you, Lily?
Well, I have really bad anxiety about a lot of things. I'm not completely sure how or when it all started, but I noticed I felt anxious about a few things. From there, it just turned into everything. There were more and more things that caused this deep stress in me. During COVID, it was scary to go out of our house. Not really because of COVID, but because of people. Being around people just made me anxious. Just made me so anxious. The thing about this anxiety is that I don't want to say why I feel anxious, because I'm afraid it'll come true if I say it out loud. So I don't. It just compounds the anxiety, and I suppose it's part of it, part of being able to try anything. But I procrastinate a lot. And as anyone who procrastinates can tell you, it doesn't do anything to alleviate the anxiety. It just makes it worse because I have longer to worry about whatever it is I'm putting off. So I put it off more, which just causes more anxiety. It's such a vicious cycle. I get so overwhelmed.
Well, one of my biggest struggles is feeling small and weak. Not physically, but in terms of the impact I can make. I want to help make things better, be a better friend, do more to heal all the hurt in the world. But when I get the chance, I feel helpless and useless. I became good friends with someone who doesn't live nearby. They are non-binary, and at the time, they didn't feel like they had any support at all from their parents or family around their own mental health and identity and just life. One night, real late, I got an incredibly scary message. They were in trouble, teetering on the edge. So I called them, and I spent the next hour and a half trying to talk them off the ledge. The whole time, all I wanted to do was reach out and grab them. You know, it's just hard when my friend was in such trouble. I wanted to do something real, physical. Do you know what I'm saying, Kate?
I totally get that. And it seems like you were able to talk them down and kind of get them off that edge. But that must be difficult, not being able to reach out and be there and help them. Somehow it seems like with all the struggle and the violence and so much fear, well, it takes a lot more than thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
I think whenever you ask yourself, whenever someone's down, what can you do to help them and not make things worse? At times it just feels so hopeless, don't you think?
Thank you for sharing your stories. I know that you're not alone in those struggles, doubts, or fears. They are real, and a lot of us feel the same things. Of course, none of us would be here tonight if those struggles and fears had taken over. Obviously, we've found hope that, while not replacing or eliminating those fears, certainly provides a balance and a way to navigate through them. Could you share some of those stories?
The great thing and a source of so much hope and so much joy for me is I know there are places where I don't feel like I need to be more than I am, where I don't need to perform and meet impossibly high expectations, where I can just feel loved for who I am. Church is that place for me. It's a place where there aren't any tests, and I don't have to worry about how fast I read or what awards I've won. It's just a place where we come together and have deep conversations, and also be silly and laugh a lot without fear of judgment or of being treated differently. It's just a place where I can exist and be authentically who I am. And of course, being at church also helps grow my faith and helps me learn about God and God's love and how it's complete and unconditional and unwavering, just the way I am. Sometimes when I'm feeling especially confused or lost or stressed, I'll just start talking out loud to God. Sometimes when I'm driving alone in the car, I'll just start talking out loud. And it's amazing how much joy and peace and comfort that brings me.
I totally agree about being at church. I feel like I belong there. And while I can't say my anxiety totally disappears when I'm there, a lot of the times it does. And even when it doesn't, I know I'm in a safe place with people who I care about and who care about me. I find so much peace in music. I love to just listen to it. It calms me. But I especially feel the power of music when we sing together. Singing is where I can express emotions and feel connected, and being able to sing brings me faith. Music has brought me more joy than I ever thought possible. All of it, listening by myself, singing at the top of my lungs with my friends, or rehearsing with the choir to sing in worship. The anxiety fades, and the fear, and something else happens. God is in the music, and in the singing, and in the connection, and I feel a lot better.
You know, for me, gathering together with others who are positive and believe similar things as me also gives me the chance to do good with others. A lot of that sense of futility and uselessness actually comes from thinking I have to do it all alone. It turns out that connecting with others who are positive and want to make a difference actually helps me make a difference. And yeah, singing is a big part of that. Just coming to choir every week, the people, the community, coming around the piano to sing brings me joy and also a sense of purpose. I don't know what it is about being there and being with those friends, but it makes me a lot more hopeful about actually making a difference. Maybe because those people make such a difference to me.
All throughout the Bible, God's messengers tell people, do not be afraid, or fear not, or things like that. It's not so much that being afraid is seen as wrong or negative, more so that God's love is so much more powerful, even when things seem really tough. In 1 John it says, we have known and have believed the love that God has for us. God is love, and those who remain in love remain in God, and God remains in them. This is how love has been perfected in us. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear expects punishment. The person who is afraid has not been made perfect in love.
I think that means that God's love is making us perfect, that we are perfected in love. And the more we focus on living in love, the less we focus on fear, and the more we focus on God and his love. And I think that God is very clear that he wants us to know that we are understood and accepted and loved, and that we are enough. I have a Bible quote that would be perfect for this. Thank you so much, Michael. Oh, yes. In Matthew, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are struggling hard and carrying heavy loads, and I will give you rest. Put on my yoke and learn from me. I'm gentle and humble, and you will find rest for yourselves. My yoke is easy to bear, and my burden is light." That feels like a promise and a present. God is very real and present with us. Jesus is still saying it to this day. Rest in me. Lay my burdens down. Let me hold you in my arms.
Rest
take your hand. I will dry your saddest tears, and I will calm your deepest fears. I will love you, I will understand.
My yoke is easy and my burden is light. My love will be with you throughout the long night. My arms reach out to you and they hold you tight. You are my beloved, you are my delight.
You know, I really thrive on close relationships, on human connection. During quarantine, I felt really lonely. Not more than anyone else I know, but when connection with others can't happen, it's really hard. It wasn't that all of a sudden when we were forced into isolation, I had this new experience of loneliness. In middle school, I didn't have any friends my age, so I spent a lot of time by myself. Then high school happened and I actually made some friends, people to hang out with. Although in the back of my mind, I wondered if they really wanted to be with me. Then COVID came around and I'm back to square one. Now that I'm back, I'm kind of haunted by the question, who do I sit with? I don't want to intrude. I had friends, but no one I was gutsy enough to go up to and say, hey, can I sit with you? I'm so insecure. Unless I get a direct invitation, I'm afraid the answer is going to be no, and I'm going to get embarrassed and then regret and overthink it a month later for no reason at all. A lot of us do that. We go back 5 years later and say, what could I have said to make the outcome a little bit better?
Relationships matter a lot to me too. My struggle, though, is that for me at least, the relationships I thought I could count on the most have let me down. In a way, it's a lot like you were saying, Alyssa. I thought I was solid with some friends, and it turns out they were acting one way with me and another way behind my back. I trusted them with some pretty personal things, and they told other people. I ended up getting made fun of. It felt really terrible, but it's not just that. As awful as that was, it just feels like people let me down. It feels like they've changed, but maybe it's me. I don't know. So, how do we restore trust when trust has been betrayed? And how can I trust again to share deep things when that hasn't worked out so well in the past? I don't feel like I can authentically be myself with most of the people I hang out with. I feel like if I do be my authentic self and they push me away, it'll be even worse. And if they end up turning other people against me, that would be terrible. I mean, I do have friends, though, that I can count on, that have my back and I have theirs. But I'm leaving for college soon, and they're either staying or going somewhere else. I just don't know if I'm going to find those types of friends again.
I get betrayal. I get relationships becoming needy and insecure and even destructive. While I'm in a really good place now, it hasn't always been that way. A while back, I found myself in a relationship that was manipulative, abusive, and toxic. The details don't matter. What matters is that for a while it consumed me, robbed me of my self-worth, my values, and my stability. I was controlled by not just someone I thought I knew and thought I loved and thought I trusted, but also my own feelings of shame and doubt and insecurity. It's a really scary place to be, but it's important to recognize it and realize that no matter what, we're not alone. We're never alone.
You know, the thing I've learned is that I can turn to my faith during tough times, especially when I feel alone or feel like the things I used to be able to rely on aren't as steady anymore. Throughout the past 4 or 5 or 6 years, the church has stayed a constant in my life. I've always found a safe place there. And even when I'm not at the church, I still try to keep in touch with my faith and keep the things I do there consistent with what I do out in the world. But mostly it's the people. And being back in the communities I've missed so much during COVID. Being close to people, hugging, seeing people smile and laugh, realizing that I'm smiling and laughing. We spent a lot of time not doing that. It's the most beautiful thing a person can do, and it brings so much hope and healing.
A lot of times, finding a common interest or purpose helps build close relationships. I find joy in the sports that I play. Working together on a team has brought so many close friendships, and a sense of putting in all that hard work, it's amazing. I'm also really thankful to be part of a family that loves and accepts each other, that I know won't abandon or judge or betray me.
I think one of the things we learn from life is there's no cure for a bad relationship better than a good relationship. That doesn't mean that the hurt or the pain goes away, especially when trust has been betrayed and abuse has happened, but finding good and right and trusting relationships has helped heal a lot of what was broken from my past experience. And of course, finding forgiveness, however that can happen. Holding on to the resentment or the bitterness or the shame only keeps us stuck in the struggle. Jesus talked quite a bit about forgiveness. It's a part of the prayer that we say all the time and a point of a lot of the parables he's told. In the parable of the prodigal son, the father in the story unconditionally forgives the son who ran away. In the prodigal of the unforgiving servant, Jesus shows us that God is just and forgiving, and we're expected to follow in that example. We all need to offer forgiveness, but that doesn't mean accepting bad behavior. But it does mean not seeking retribution or revenge. It's one of the central tenets of living in a community with one another.
And the earliest community of believers were clear that we were all called to care for each other. In the second chapter of Acts, well, Michael, can I just have the Bible? Thank you. In the second chapter of Acts, the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings, to the community, to their shared meals, and to their prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone. God performed many wonders and signs through the apostles. They would sell pieces of property and possessions and distribute the proceeds to everyone who needed them. Every day, they met together in the temple and ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. They praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone. The Lord added daily to the community.
Was life really that much better back in Bible days? It sounds like everyone got along. They just ate and sang and prayed. What happened when they disagreed or someone felt betrayed? Did no one ever lose their cool, go off on a tirade?
I'm sure between the lines there was lots of stormy weather. We know they fought from time to time about who God loves better. It's human nature after all, we hurt our friends. However, I think the point is to help us see that life is better together.
that's the key. Better together, it is not a mystery. We need each other plain and true, we just can't do it alone. You need me and I need you, the fact is widely known. Because we're better together, it's the truth that sets us free. Sometimes the ones we trust the most betray the trust we've shown. It leaves us feeling hurt and lost, we feel so all alone. But the truth be told, we've done the same at one time or another. So let's forgive and make amends and let our wounds recover. Because we're better together, that's the secret, that's the key. Better together, it is not a mystery. We need each other plain and true, we just can't do it alone. You need me and I need you, the fact is widely known. Because we're better together, it's the truth that sets us free. They say a cord with triple strands is difficult to break. So adding strands by adding friends, a stronger cord will make. The cord that binds us each to each, the love that makes us whole, comes from our God who calls us all to join our hearts and souls and be better together. That's the secret, that's the key. Better together, it is not a mystery. We need each other plain and true, we just can't do it alone. You need me and I need you, the fact is widely known. Because we're better together, it's the truth that sets us free. Better together, we're better together, we're better together, we're better together, it's us. Because we're better together, that's the secret, that's the key. Better together, it is not a mystery. Better together, that's the secret, that's the key. Better together, it is not a mystery. Better together, it's the truth that sets us free.
Unfortunately, one of our friends, Adam, wasn't able to make it here tonight, but I was lucky enough to have a conversation with him earlier over the phone, and I was able to write his story down in my book of stories. So I'm going to read it to you for a second. So Adam says, I kind of have a little bit of everything. I was born with a hole in my heart, but in a way that was kind of a cool thing, especially since it healed on its own. Later, I had seizures and was put on medication. In 3rd grade, I had surgery, and I'm still scared that I might have to have surgery again sometimes. It's caused me a lot of pain. I've also had a couple concussions. It just feels like there's always something. I feel like I can never let my guard down because I don't know what's going to happen next. It's not just dealing with the physical things that happens. It's even harder just worrying about what's going to happen next. I don't know. It just stresses me out a lot. All the worry and the struggle, it's just so much.
I'm kind of in a similar place in terms of disabilities. When I was a kid, I was on the spectrum. Well, I still am, but it just got less noticeable. Didn't affect my academics. Actually, it helped it. But making friends, socializing, that was hard. I'm always trying to be socially accepted, but it's just not that easy. You hear a lot of talk these days about people being on the spectrum. I guess it's good that awareness is being raised, but it also makes people like me feel like just an arbitrary thing, a point on some graph, something a little less than human. But I'm not a condition or a label or a point on a spectrum. I'm a real, complete, and whole person.
Well, in grade school, I was diagnosed with ADD. It was hard to focus and took me a long time to complete things. The simplest things would take forever to do. Turns out I also have dyslexia. I really struggled through school. I was different from most people. I never got reading. I was way below reading level, and I had trouble understanding. Made me feel worse than everybody else, not as good. I didn't like talking about it, so I never asked for help. I guess mostly what I've struggled with is myself, and feeling like I'm not good enough. Eventually, my dyslexia morphed into something called dysgraphia. But the more names and labels they came up with for what I was dealing with, the worse I felt.
Ha, dyslexia, dysgraphia, and I have dyscalculia. That's the holy trinity of disses. I can't hold sequences of numbers in my brain, like phone numbers or birth dates. Like you, it makes me feel different, or not as good as, or othered.
Dyslexia, noun, a general term for disorders that involve difficulty in learning to read or interpret words, letters, and other symbols, but do not affect general intelligence.
Dysgraphia, noun, impairment of handwriting ability that is characterized chiefly by very poor or often illegible writing, or writing that takes an unusually long time and great effort to complete.
Dyscalculia, noun, a learning difficulty that affects an individual's ability to do basic arithmetic such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Adults with dyscalculia often take longer when working with numbers.
Dyslexia and dysgraphia and dyscalculia, that's a partial list of all the labels differently able folks like us are dismissed with a dis. Sometimes it's disconcerting, the dysfunctions that describe us. They're one small part of all that makes us who we are. There's so much more to being human than just out or the other. The dis is one song in the human repertoire. We aren't the label, that's a disconnection from the human wholeness that makes each of us. The dis is we all claim help understanding. We'd be dissatisfied with anything else.
I thought there must be something very wrong with me. I worked so hard, but everything was tough. So finally, when I learned there was a name for this, I knew that who I am is more than enough.
Dyslexia and dysgraphia and dyscalculia, that's a partial list of all the labels differently able folks like us are dismissed with a dis. Sometimes it's disconcerting, the dysfunctions that describe us. They're one small part of all that makes us who we are. There's so much more to being human than just out or the other. The dis is one song in the human repertoire. We aren't the label, that's a disconnection from the human wholeness that makes each of us. The dis is we all claim help understanding. We'd be dissatisfied with anything else.
I wonder why I never could make sense of things. My studies always put me in a jam. I learned this isn't something that should bring me shame. It's just a part of all that makes me who I am.
dyslexia and dysgraphia and dyscalculia. That's a partial list of all the labels differently abled folks like us are dismissed with a dis. Sometimes it's disconcerting, the dysfunctions that describe us. They're one small part of all that makes us who we are. There's so much more to being human than this doubt or the other. The dis is one song in the human repertoire. We aren't the label, that's a disconnection from the human wholeness that makes each of us. The dis is we hope can help understanding. We'd be dissatisfied with anything else. The dis is we hope can help understanding. We'd be dissatisfied with anything else.
I know others of you have already talked about this, but one of the greatest joys and most healing things in my life is singing. It's a way of communicating with people when I don't necessarily have the words myself. And it's not just the words, but the music behind it. When I sing, it's like a keyhole and my chest opens up, and the song is the key. And a little door swings wide open and fills me with a bright and warm light. And it no longer matters if I can read as well as other people, or if my attention span wanders, or if numbers get all jumbled up in my head. It's a way of expressing myself and joining with others to express the inexpressible. And while I might struggle to express myself in reading and writing, when I sing, it all makes sense.
Eventually, I made some good friends. I made some not so good friends too, but that's what happens in life. I'm grateful for the good friends and for being accepted for who I am. It's nice to feel like I can be who I am without being labeled or judged or pushed aside.
Healing happens in so many different ways. It was one of the central aspects of Jesus' work in ministry. He healed the sick, and not just physically, but more importantly, he brought spiritual healing as well. He helped change our way of thinking, helping us to understand that the things that afflict us aren't our fault, aren't caused by sin, but are a part of life. He also helped us understand that an attitude of faith, a life of love, can help protect us from self-destructive behaviors, from hatred and isolation, from thinking God rewards some and punishes others. Healing for Jesus was whole and holistic.
One of my favorite stories is the story of Jacob wrestling with God. It's not necessarily a literal story, more of a metaphor for our struggles with God. Charles Wesley wrote a ridiculously long hymn about it and viewed it as a metaphor for our misidentification of who and what God is. I think a lot of our idea of health and healing and wholeness involves wrestling with God, perhaps beginning with trying to make God conform to who we think we want or need God to be, but eventually realizing that God is in us and with us and working through us, and who and what and how God is love.
Thought I felt you near, but my vision wasn't clear. I couldn't tell that you had hold of me. I tried to cling so tight, and I wrestled through the night. And with the dawn, my weary eyes could see who you are and what you are. Once I let go, I see it's you have hold of me. And now I know your love can never end. You've been here all along, your voice in every song. My weakness and my doubt, your love transcends. Who you are and what you are and how you are is love. you are and how you are is love, love, love. Who and what and how you are is love. Who you are and what you are and how you are is love, 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 love. Who and what and how you are is love.
In a way, all of our stories of struggles, whether they're about relationships or fears and anxieties or other things we have to deal with, they all include some kind of loss. Loss of trust, loss of security, loss of stability, loss of self-worth, and on and on. And a lot of times, it's loss itself that brings some of the greatest burdens: grief, emptiness, sadness. I know the three of you, and all of us really, have stories of loss to share.
Yeah, I guess I could start. A couple of years ago, my grandfather died. He was old and all, but it was pretty unexpected. This was the first time I had really experienced death. I was so sad. That was really hard, but through that experience, I learned that a lot of people, maybe most people, don't know how to talk about death. It was crazy seeing people react because they don't know how to react. My friends didn't say much, if anything. Even my family had a hard time talking about it. Then, a couple months ago, my grandma died. She was sick a long time, but it was still really hard. Death just seemed so final. This time, though, I guess I was a little more prepared, and I decided I would talk about it. I think this helped other people realize that death isn't something to go unnoticed, but something that happens to all of us, and that we need each other to get through it.
My parents got divorced when I was a kid. I really didn't understand. For a while, I thought maybe it was my fault, but they both helped me see that it wasn't me. If it wasn't me, though, what was it? I thought they loved each other, and even though they would argue a lot, I never thought a day might come where we didn't all live together. Looking back, I think they really did try to make things as easy or normal for us kids as possible. But there is nothing easy or normal about it. I had 2 places to stay and split my week between their houses. 2 bedrooms, 2 breakfast tables. Nothing felt familiar or normal. I still had both my parents, and I still do, and I'm really grateful for that. But somehow, it felt like I didn't have all of them anymore. It still makes me sad.
All of us have lost friends or acquaintances. A few of us were friends with a boy who was killed by a truck while biking to school this past year. A lot of us have lost friends and classmates to suicide. This is the time in our lives when we shouldn't be losing friends without even getting to say goodbye. I think all of us are especially shaken up and anxious about gun violence. I feel like nowhere is safe anymore, not going to the grocery store or walking down the street or even going to school. One of my friends lost her sister. She was pregnant and she was killed in a drive-by shooting. It just doesn't make any sense.
You're right. It doesn't make sense. And whether we've lost grandparents, parents, siblings, or friends, loss cuts deep and it brings tremendous pain. Sometimes it feels like a mountain that we can never get over.
The loss of you could see brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me out in the rain. Where you're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name.
Oh, the pain becomes a river, and the river becomes an ocean, and the ocean holds the spirit that washes over me. And the spirit marks the memories, and the memories fill the heart space, and the heart space knows no limits, and the loss is made whole.
The loss of you could see brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me out in the rain. Where you're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name.
You're the feast upon my table, and the open chair beside me, and the love that holds such goodness, and the widening heart I know. You're the words that I have written, and the story that's been woven. You're the tears that know my sorrow, and forgiveness in my cup. Oh, how generous the doorway. Oh, that calls me to lean in. Oh, the things we gain from losing. Oh, they teach us to begin. Oh, how generous the doorway. Oh, that calls me to lean in. Oh, the things we gain from losing. Oh, they teach us to begin. The loss of you could see brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me out in the rain. Where you're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name. You're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name. You're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name. What we've shared here is life. We could go on and on telling our stories, talking about the times we've hurt, the losses we've suffered, and the places that we've found community. The light of dawn just beyond the darkness, all the more brilliant for the contrast.
In a lot of ways, all of our stories of struggle, whether about relationships or fears and anxieties or different things we have to deal with, all include some kind of loss. I totally agree with you, Michael. A loss of trust, loss of security, loss of stability, loss of self-worth, and on and on. Tyler, did you have something more you wanted to say about that? Something about a lot of times it's loss itself that brings some of the greatest burdens. Grief, sadness, emptiness. I know the three of you, and all of us really, have stories of loss to share. Could you share some of those?
One of the best ways to remember the ones we've lost is through memory. Sometimes memory can be hard because remembering the person we lost reminds us that they're gone and we won't be able to spend any more time with them. But I actually think that memory is a way to continue to enjoy those times. Every moment in life is fleeting. It's over before we even know it. The memory of that moment, though, keeps it alive and weaves it into our being so that it becomes a part of us. That is so much more true when it's the memory of someone who has been significant in our lives. I think remembering, nurturing, and celebrating those memories keeps them with us in a very real way.
What I've learned, and continue to learn, is to savor each moment. Kind of like what you were saying. Make the moments count so the memories will be strong and positive and meaningful. Things might not be like they used to be, and that's hard and that's sad, but there are still moments to create, moments to savor, moments to embrace. I try to do that with whichever parent I'm with, or with friends who may have moved away, or with family members who live in a different state or country. Sure, there's an emptiness when I'm not with them, but that's a good time to rely on the memories and be grateful for the time spent together. That also leads me to create moments of connection and significance. They're still there, and they still make a huge difference.
I also think that finding hope requires us to take action. Sometimes hope depends on us breaking through the fear and despair and defeat so that hope can shine through again. It might seem like we're never going to be able to stop the epidemic of gun violence, but the kids who survived the Parkland shooting in Florida, they've created a movement called March for Our Lives, and they're speaking with passion and conviction and love, and they're not giving up, and their actions are inspiring others. This is something we all can do. All the feelings of hopelessness, not just about gun violence, but climate change and racism and heterosexism and religious intolerance and white supremacy and on and on and on. But for every one of those seemingly insurmountable issues, there are voices speaking up, taking action, leading others to action. They don't seem to think it's hopeless, and if they don't, neither do I.
I think that's what Jesus was talking about when he told us to be salty, to let our light shine, working for justice, to right the wrongs, to speak up for the least, the lost, and the lonely is exactly what he was talking about. I also have another Bible quote in mind. Thank you. Here it is. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how will it become salty again? It's good for nothing except to be thrown away and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city on top of a hill can't be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, they put it on top of a lampstand so it shines on all who are in the house. In that same way, let your light shine before people so they can see the good things you do and praise God who is in heaven. Jesus didn't whisper this or say it to only his closest followers. He proclaimed it to everyone who had gathered to hear his Sermon on the Mount. We remember, we create moments, we make hope happen. These are all the ways of being salty, of letting our light shine. Oh, a city on a hill can't be hidden, 'cause your lamp will share its light for all to see. And the heavens, they will open up and shout to all the world, crying, oh, you are enough.
Oh, I am enough, as light to the world, just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Oh, I am enough, as light to the world, just as I am, just as I'm a child of God.
Turn my Sunday morning into dancing. You can mold your grief and struggle into joy. You can gather up the memories and cast aside your pain, crying, oh, you are enough.
Oh, I am enough, as light to the world, just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Oh, I am enough, as light to the world, just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. We will remember you are enough. Savor the goodness, you are enough. Stand with the lonely, you are enough. Break through our fears, you are enough. Transform with courage, you are enough. Speak with compassion, you are enough. Proclaim the message, you are enough. Light of the world, oh, I am enough, as light to the world, just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Oh, I am enough, as light to the world, just as I am,
I'm sure if we kept sharing, each story would spark 10 more, and not just with us, but with all of you.
Hopefully, this has simply been a stopping place along the journey, a place to pause and be together and share together and watch the beautiful tapestry that emerges as the strands of our stories weave together. You're right, Tyler. For every time we trust enough to share a part of ourselves with one another, more and more stories are sparked. More and more strands are woven together. The more we see God's love and creativity at work. The beautiful poetry of Psalm 139 sings to God, "You are the one who created our innermost parts. You knit me together. Your works are wonderful. I know that very well. We are fearfully and wonderfully made." That knitting that the psalmist talks about certainly includes the struggles and the triumphs and the hopes and the fears and the joys and the celebrations of all of our lives. God is the creator, is with us through it all, and is the one who weaves it all together.
Weave it all together. Weave throughout whatever. Weave. It's now or never. The stories of our lives encounter other lives and stories, and together weave into a wonder sacred to behold. Each story is a strand unique and wondrous on its own, and when it weaves into another, miracles unfold. Weave it all together. Weave throughout whatever. Weave. It's now or never. Each one of us packs many strands held in our deepest places. We long for sanctuary where it's safe for us to share. The more we trust, the more we weave, the more we weave, we see how beautiful this world can be when we listen and we care. Each day we bring more strands to weave together. Each day our tapestry adds more delight. Each moment of each life is sacred beauty. Each strand we weave adds beauty, depth, and light. Weave it all together. Weave throughout whatever.
You may be seated. We are so grateful that you joined us tonight.
Hey, Carol, can we interrupt you real quick?
I'm still grateful that you joined us tonight, though.
Yeah.
We'll just start with that.
We have one thing first. There are a few people who have been really important this tour, and we would like to specifically thank them. I believe my mother's here. Thank you, Mom. Love you. Best one I have. This first one is for Cindy Golden, if you could come up here. So Cindy was a member of Starfire herself, went to college, came back, worked here for a few years, and we are so grateful that you've come back for this last tour. Thank you, Cindy.
This next one is for Lee French, if she can come on up. You have truly made this tour happen. You have encouraged it. You have stood by it every step of the way. So thank you so much.
And then last but certainly not least, we have Dirk and Carol. Dirk, if you could maybe make So all of us are here in this room tonight because Dirk and Carol have made some impact in all of our lives. And it's incredible to be in a room with all those types of people. And over the past 4 years, it definitely hasn't been easy with the ups and downs this group has taken and this little known thing called a pandemic that got in the way of a lot of singing and our normal activities. But they have just been champions through it all and got us through it. And have been doing this for 39 years, which is incredible to think about. So without their tireless hours, there is no way this tour would be on its feet, and we are so grateful for the both of you, and we love you more than anything. Thank you so much. Yeah. Do you want me to hold on to this until after? Yeah.
One of the great things about a pandemic is you learn what's really important and what's not. And what I have learned is memorizing things at the end is not important. So I'm going to keep my eye on this. But we are really grateful that you came here tonight just to listen to our stories. And perhaps these singers felt safe to share their stories because they grew up with stories. They had bedtime stories at home, and they had circle time at school, and they had Bible stories at church. And they know the importance of stories. Stories, they are the things that speak truth into our lives. At the beginning of this musical, Michael says this: In a world and a time that is so focused on what separates us, our time here tonight is what connects us. The stories, the struggles, the hopes, all of it. Every person we encounter, every single person carries so many strands of so many stories. Mostly, we'll never know how they all weave together. But we believe that the more we know, the better our chances for finding connection and understanding. And it is my prayer tonight that we begin to focus on the threads that create a stronger weave. The one of inclusion and listening and accepting and loving and expanding ourselves to be more in a world that is so often trying to minimize us. These are the threads that have the potential to connect us and create us into the most dazzling tapestry we've ever seen. My hunch is we can do this one story at a time, so I'm going to start. My story is one about yellow paint. Yesterday, I was racing back here to the church for our final dress rehearsal, and I noticed I had yellow paint all over my hands. I smiled. I had just left my high school artists at Art Changes Us on our Mountain View campus. We were working on a large mural, and my hands were witness of that. For those of you who aren't familiar with Art Changes Us, also known as ACU, it was born out of my Changemaker project about 3.5 years ago. And with my closest partners, Bill Scull and Katie Pavatial, we have created an arts program for under-resourced youth that focuses on photography, mixed media, and graphic design. And its purpose? To help young people discover purpose through art. We believe that just like the youth at LAUMC, they have a story to tell through the arts. So tonight, our offering will go to Art Changes Us. And if you want to know more about this program, that is your program. It is your ministry, a ministry of Los Altos United Methodist Church. I ask that you go check us out at artchangesus.org. And this program, without a doubt, is a cloth worth weaving and a story worth telling. So when the baskets are sent down, I'll ask the people taking the offering to come forward. You're going to see hooked onto the baskets. If you are more comfortable just hitting the QR code there, have it. If you're like me, I'm much more about the putting into the basket kind of person. But find a way to give, to keep this program that we started alive, and not just alive, but growing and expanding so we can keep doing this good work of storytelling in the world through the arts. As we always do, anyone who is here, an alumni of Starfire, we would love to invite you up for our last song together. So please, come.
us the wonder of love. In the beauty